This week on Another Thing, the president's task force comes out with recommendations on policing in African-American neighborhoods. Will they work? Dawn talks to a visionary who's part of the rebirth of Atlantic City. And my commentary this week is on the upcoming and continuing fight over voter ID. I'm Larry Menti. Welcome to Another Thing. Unrest stemming from deaths at the hands of police in Ferguson, Staten Island, South Carolina, Baltimore, Cleveland, and other cities have dominated the news. Neighborhoods and lives have been destroyed, leaving a nation torn and trying to rebuild. Mending and understanding the divide between the African American community and police is the focus of our show today. We start our reporting with Ellen Kolodziej in Philadelphia. Ellen.
An overwhelming number of Americans expect more violence on the streets of this country this summer because of racial tension. But one local group here in Philadelphia who recently took to the streets after the uprising in Baltimore, well, they say they're not sure what will happen.
This happens every day, and not every case leads to a mass uprising, but it's happening at a rate and so often that, yes, people should expect that people are going to keep getting angry and angrier and angrier until the problem is properly dealt with.
Lanice Williams is the spokesperson for the Coalition for Philly Real Justice. The REAL stands for Racial, Economic, and Legal Justice. Her group started after the Ferguson protests. Then after Baltimore, more than 1,000 Philadelphians came together to show solidarity, and they did it peacefully.
It's about us standing together, unified, about the same conditions, understanding what life is like in the urban areas and how the relations with police and the black communities are.
Yeah, I was really pleased with the protests and how it went. Even when the cops got a little rowdy towards the end of the protests, that, there wasn't a lot of, hysteria among the people, reacting to that. There was one part where there was pepper spray deployed at people.
The Philadelphia Police Department gave us this statement: "We are prepared for protests this summer as we are all year long. We always intend to make sure the rights of protesters as well as the general public are protected during these events while maintaining the safety of all the citizens of Philadelphia."
The same issues that got Baltimore to where they are the same issues that we're dealing with here. And if we don't fix them now and we don't take it seriously and really address it, that we can be the next Baltimore. And nobody wants that.
So members of the group Philly Real Justice say they're not planning any formal rallies this summer, but they're certainly not ruling out taking to these streets again. Reporting for Another Thing, I'm Ellen Kolodziej.
All right, thank you, Ellen. To talk more about policing, community policing specifically, and some of the problems we've had across the country with policing in especially African-American neighborhoods is Rashawn Davis, who is at the American Civil Liberties Union, and Clifton Arrington, who is with the People's Organization for Progress and has a big event coming up that we want to get to in 1 second. But with the ACLU, Rashawn, you are involved specifically with the issue of policing. And is it fair to say in African-American neighborhoods, or should I just say community policing?
Well, community policing in general, I think, is the most appropriate term.
Because every one of the reason I ask that question is because every one of the cases that seems to rise to a national level isn't just about policing, it's about white police officers and African-American victims.
Right.
So it really is about, it is rooted in race.
Partially, I think what you've seen across the country is an emerging dialogue that although the cases that get the most attention tend to be cases where African-American males are killed by white police officers, there's a movement across the country that's saying that this is an issue that doesn't just affect black men, it's an issue that affects black women, members of the LGBTQ community, members of the trans community, and that's something that we at the ACLU, through our coalition work, are trying to get out there, that this is an issue that affects people from all walks of life, not just African-American men.
I don't want to stay on this topic too much because you have more important things to talk about, but it does seem that all the cases we seem to talk about and the ones that get national attention are white police officers and black victims. And so I know you want to make it a bigger issue than that, but at least the media is focused on that. Is the community not focused on that?
The community is very focused on that. And from what I can see, around the country, throughout the country, from east to west, south, north, the majority of people coming out now are a lot of younger people of younger age, which I think is a very significant point, because they're the ones who actually get things going. Their energy, their demands, their interest are so overwhelming that it just inspires you and motivates you to come out and be part of the movement.
I love that you said that.
We need a strong movement.
I love that you said that.
Across the country, and I think that's what's happening now.
Because I had heard Professor West from Stanford talking about this very issue, and he said that a lot of the so-called African American leaders need to get out of the way and let some young voices be heard, because they sometimes sully the issue, because their agendas never seem to match sometimes what some of the, and you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I agree with what Clifton said, that there is an increasing disconnect between this burgeoning young movement of people of color who are saying enough is enough, that young people have a fight and have a place in this discussion. And we have sort of these seasoned veterans who have been around since the 60s and 70s, who have a place, in their wisdom and their history has a place in this movement. But I think this movement specifically is the movement of my generation. And so we have to be the ones to take the lead.
Let's talk about two specific cases, and then from there we'll move on to specifics about how to solve the problem, because I think that's lost too much in the discussion. They talk about the problem too much and not how to solve the problem. But I do want to focus on what happened in Baltimore, which I think almost everybody agrees was horrific. Both the actions of the police and what happened afterwards were both equally horrific. And then what happened in Cleveland, when you had the acquittal of a police officer, and there were protests and there were some arrests, but neighborhoods didn't burn down. Right. Do you think that Cleveland learned from Baltimore? Do you think we're all learning from Baltimore?
I think we're all learning from each other. I think what we've seen is sort of these spurts and outbreaks that are happening across the country, and we're taking note. I think in a lot of ways, the situation in Baltimore was a lot more dire than the situation in Cleveland. Not to say that one life is more valuable than another, but the circumstances that caused the uprising that happened in Baltimore were a mix of just abject poverty that happens in Baltimore, high crime, mixed sort of with that police brutality.
But that doesn't excuse the violence, right?
It doesn't excuse the violence, but Cleveland doesn't see that same level of poverty, sort of those supplementary causes that made Baltimore sort of the highlight of that outbreak.
You know, we got so wrapped up with this, I didn't get into the specifics like I said I was going to, so we'd love to have you both back, but I definitely want to talk about your event that's coming up. Please promote your event you're going to have on this very issue.
On July 25th, which is a Saturday, the People's Organization for Progress is having a march against police brutality, racial injustice, and it's encompassing people from all around the country. It's being held in Newark, but we're asking people from all over the country to come and be part of this demonstration, this march, this rally against police brutality and racial injustice.
And the reaction you're getting so far, are you getting a number of people coming?
Tremendous. We have 40 organizations on board already. We are looking out to 60 plus more. So we're getting a tremendous amount of support from the community and from within and out the community.
Including us. We're endorsers of that march as well.
We have a very strong bond with the ACLU.
That's wonderful. Look, yes. There's so much more I wanted to talk to both of you about. Would you make me the promise that you'd both come back so we can continue this discussion?
Yes, of course.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the discussion. Nice meeting you, sir. Rashawn Davis, who is with the American Civil Liberties Union out of Newark, New Jersey, and also Clifton Arrington, who is with the People's Organization for Progress and is planning a large protest against police brutality, especially in the African American community. When we come back, we will get into some specifics, specifically police officers wearing cameras, if it's a good idea, if it will help in policing across the country, when Another Thing returns.